You know, they say television is a team sport. Ensemble casts, shared storylines, everybody gets their moment in the spotlight. That is the dream. But every now and then, one actor got so big, so dominant, so completely impossible to ignore, that the rest of the cast basically became human wallpaper. Today we are counting down 12 TV stars who did not just steal the show. They repossessed it, changed the locks, and quietly showed everyone else to the door. And some of them did not even have to raise their voice to do it. Most of them did though, loudly. Hi, my name is Aaron, and this is Old TV Cinema. Number 12, Sherman Hemsley, The Jeffersons. The Jeffersons ran for 11 seasons from 1975 to 1985, spinning off from All in the Family and following George and Louise Jefferson as they finally made good on that famous promise and moved on up to a deluxe apartment on the east side of Manhattan. Now, that theme song was not exactly subtle about who this show was really about. Nobody was writing Grammy-nominated lyrics about Tom Willis. Nobody had a song about Wheezy's dry cleaning business. It was George's story, George's world, and everybody else was living in it rent-free. Sherman Hemsley's George Jefferson was loud, brash, self-made, and absolutely magnetic. Isabel Sanford's Louise was a wonderful foil, warm and sharp in equal measure, and their chemistry was undeniable. But George ran the show, and somewhere around season 4, the writers stopped pretending otherwise. Storylines bent toward him. Guest stars came in specifically to face off with him. Even the show's genuinely heartfelt moments somehow ended up hinging on George's next move. Other characters faded quietly into the background. Lionel Jefferson, played first by Mike Evans and later by Damon Evans, no relation, was the show's original co-lead, a young, idealistic son meant to balance his father's bluster. By the later seasons, Lionel felt more like a recurring guest than a main character. As for the Willises, lovely people, furniture basically. Hemsley never forced anyone out with ultimatums or contract standoffs. He just outperformed the entire cast every single week for 11 years. Sometimes dominance is quieter than you expect. Number 11, Tom Selleck, Magnum P.I. Magnum P.I. premiered in 1980 and ran for 8 seasons through 1988 on CBS. It followed Thomas Magnum, a private investigator living on a Hawaiian estate owned by the never-seen but always-heard Robin Masters, voiced by none other than Orson Welles. And look, the premise gave you everything. Beautiful locations, fast cars, a Vietnam backstory with genuine emotional weight, and Tom Selleck's mustache, which honestly deserved its own spin-off and probably its own agent. The show had a legitimate ensemble. John Hillerman played the perpetually irritated Higgins with real wit and remarkable precision. Roger E. Mosley and Larry Manetti rounded out the team as T.C. and Rick. These were good actors doing good work. The problem was Tom Selleck standing right next to them. You have to understand, Tom Selleck in 1982 was operating on a frequency the rest of television simply could not match. The charisma, the comedic timing, the dramatic range, the infrastructure of that face. It was honestly a little unfair to everybody sharing a screen with him. CBS noticed. By the middle seasons, Magnum P.I. had quietly transformed from an ensemble adventure show into the Tom Selleck experience, featuring some friends. Higgins maintained strong storylines, to be fair, but T.C. and Rick, their character development slowed to a crawl. They became a Greek chorus with better tans. By the final seasons, their primary function was to react to whatever Magnum had gotten himself into, this week and occasionally drive the helicopter. Tom Selleck never pushed anyone aside. He just existed so powerfully that everyone else sort of orbited him, like very tan satellites. Number 10, Don Johnson, Miami Vice. Miami Vice hit NBC in 1984 and immediately rewrote the rulebook for what a cop show could look like. Pastel suits, no socks. Phil Collins on the soundtrack, Michael Mann creating a visual language for television that nobody had seen before. And at the center of it all, Don Johnson as Sonny Crockett, brooding, reckless, and effortlessly cool in a way that made every man in America reconsider his wardrobe choices, for better and absolutely for worse. Philip Michael Thomas played Ricardo Tubbs, Crockett's partner, Thomas was a charismatic actor with legitimate screen presence, and the Crockett and Tubbs partnership was the entire marketing premise. Equal billing. Miami Vice was sold as a duo. In the early seasons, it almost functioned like one. Then something shifted. Don Johnson started getting bigger, not just on the show, everywhere. Magazine covers, film offers, a music career. Yes, Don Johnson actually had a music career, and his single Heartbeat hit the top 5 in 1986. Good for him, genuinely. But as Johnson's star ascended off screen, the show's creative priorities drifted accordingly. Crockett's storylines got deeper, darker, and more psychologically complex. Tubbs increasingly became the man who showed up in the second act to look concerned about whatever Crockett was going through this week. By seasons 4 and 5, Miami Vice had effectively become a Sonny Crockett character study, with Thomas riding along as a supportive colleague. Nobody made an official announcement. The title card did not change. The drift was quiet, but it was unmistakable to anyone paying attention. Number 9. Ed O'Neill, Married with Children. Married with Children launched on Fox in 1987 and spent 11 seasons proving that America had a deep and apparently bottomless appetite for watching one man be comprehensively miserable. Al Bundy, played by Ed O'Neill, was the centerpiece. A former high school football hero, now selling women's shoes in a suburban Chicago strip mall, married to Peg, surrounded by the Darcys next door, and slowly losing whatever dignity he had left, which, honestly, was not much to begin with. Here is the thing about Ed O'Neill. He is a genuinely great comedic actor who probably deserved better material than Married with Children, while simultaneously making Married with Children something actually worth watching. His physical comedy, his delivery, his ability to make Al's suffering both hilarious and strangely sympathetic. That was real craft. Katie Sagal was terrific as Peg. Christina Applegate absolutely owned the early seasons as Kelly. Yes, David Faustino had his moments as Bud. But as the show rolled into its middle years, the writers made a choice they probably did not even realize they were making. Every setup started and ended with Al. Every episode lived or died on what O'Neill brought to the couch and the shoe store. The rest of the cast did not disappear, but their independent storylines dried up steadily. Kelly's plots existed to bounce off Al. Peg's entire character increasingly became a reaction to Val. The show ran on O'Neill the way a car runs on gasoline, quietly, efficiently, and with no real alternative. And when Seven arrived in season 7 as a supposed creative jolt, well, we covered that story on this channel, so you already know how that ended. Actually, the world knows how that ended. Milk cartons. Number 8. Roseanne Barr, Roseanne. Now here is where things get genuinely complicated, and I am saying that with full awareness of how complicated things eventually became in ways we are absolutely not getting into today. Stay with me. Stay focused, Aaron. Roseanne premiered on ABC in 1988 and was, at its peak, the most watched show in America. Not one of the most watched, the most watched. It tackled working class life with a raw honesty that most network sitcoms would not go near with a 10-foot script note. Roseanne Connor was loud, exhausted, funny, and real in a way that audiences recognized immediately. Roseanne Barr was not just starring in the show, and she was the show, in every possible sense of that phrase. And I mean that quite literally. Barr had a famously turbulent relationship with the show's original creators and writers from the beginning. Tom Arnold, her husband at the time, received a producer credit. Writers who clashed with her vision found themselves replaced. Head writers came and went with a regularity that would make your head spin. By some accounts, the series cycled through more than a dozen of them over its 9-season run. What makes Roseanne different from others on this list is that her dominance was not purely a matter of on-screen charisma. She fought openly for creative control, demanded storylines match her vision, and restructured the show's production hierarchy to keep herself at the center of every decision. John Goodman was brilliant as Dan Connor. Laurie Metcalf, playing Jackie, was consistently one of the funniest women on television. Both were Emmy-caliber performers doing Emmy-caliber work. And yet, behind the scenes, there was never a single moment of ambiguity about whose name sat at the top of the call sheet and who that was never going to change for. Number 7. Larry Hagman, Dallas. Dallas ran on CBS from 1978 to 1989, following the Ewing family and their oil empire through enough scheming, backstabbing, and strategic remarrying to keep daytime soap writers furiously taking notes. The show premiered as an ensemble. Multiple families, multiple storylines, multiple places for audiences to put their attention. Nobody needed multiple places. Everybody chose J.R. Larry Hagman's. A.R. Ewing became one of the defining characters in the history of American television. Charming, ruthless, perpetually scheming, and genuinely funny in a way that villain characters rarely manage to be. The man could deliver a line like a buttered knife, smooth going in, and you only felt it later. When J.R. was shot at the end of season 3 in 1980, it generated what may be the most culturally pervasive TV cliffhanger in history. Who Shot J.R. became a national obsession. Hagman, a TV veteran well before Dallas, suddenly became one of the biggest names in entertainment worldwide. He reportedly used that leverage brilliantly, negotiating a salary that made him the highest paid actor on American television at the time. And with that leverage came influence over the show's direction. The storytelling increasingly orbited J.R. Bobby, played by Patrick Duffy, was a compelling character. Sue Ellen, played by Linda Gray, was arguably one of the most interesting women on the show. Pam, played by Victoria Principal, had genuine depth in the early seasons, all of them capable, all of them increasingly satellites. Patrick Duffy actually left the series after season 8, only to return the following season inside a shower, in one of the most spectacularly absurd retcons in television history. That move had nothing to do with Hagman's power, and everything to do with how badly the show needed a Ewing in every room. Number 6. Michael J. Fox, Family Ties. Family Ties debuted on NBC in 1982 as a show about liberal parents navigating a country that had swung sharply rightward. Specifically, the strange discovery that their son had grown up to be a card-carrying young conservative. Stephen and Elise Keaton, played by Michael Gross and Meredith Baxter Birney, were the adults. The concept was a generational comedy built around the whole family. That was the pitch, the premise, and the plan. Then Michael J. Fox happened. Alex P. Keaton was written as the comedic antagonist, the punchline at the center of a show about cultural clash. What nobody anticipated was that Fox would play the character with such specific timing, such genuine charm, that audiences would fall completely in love with someone who was technically the joke. Brandon Tartikoff, the legendary NBC programming chief, was reportedly told by creator Gary David Goldberg that the show was about the parents. Tartikoff's response, which has since passed into TV history, was essentially, "No, it is about the kid with the briefcase." He was right. By season 3, Family Ties had become the Alex Keaton show, and nobody was pretending otherwise. Michael Gross and Meredith Baxter Birney were accomplished performers who deserved better than what the later seasons gave them. Their storylines contracted. Justine Bateman's Mallory drifted toward the background. Tina Yothers, playing youngest daughter Jennifer, became increasingly decorative, and then they added Andy, the baby who aged into a walking punchline by season 5, which we have covered extensively on this channel, so I will spare you the recap and just give you the meaningful look. The real casualty here was what the show was supposed to be, a sharp, politically charged family comedy. What it became was the Michael J. Fox Variety Hour, which honestly, given what he delivered every single week, is difficult to entirely complain about. Number 5. Carroll O'Connor, All in the Family. All in the Family premiered on CBS in 1971, and it changed American television permanently. Norman Lear's unflinching look at cultural bigotry, filtered through the living room of Queen's loudmouth Archie Bunker, was unlike anything that had come before it. The show was designed as a battle of ideas, Archie on one side, his liberal son-in-law Mike, played by Rob Reiner, on the other, Edith, played by Jean Stapleton, as the show's moral center, Gloria, played by Sally Struthers, as the emotional bridge. A genuine 4-person show in its early seasons that needed all 4 of them to work. But here is the thing about Carroll O'Connor. He was operating at a different level. Not louder, not broader. Simply better, more nuanced, more layered. Archie Bunker was simultaneously a man you laughed at, winced at, and against your better judgment, Roseanne Connor was loud, exhausted, funny, and real in a way that audiences recognized immediately, occasionally felt something like sympathy for. That is an almost impossible tightrope walk, and O'Connor performed it every episode for 9 seasons, without once losing his balance. By the middle of the run, the production team was quietly acknowledging what the numbers already showed. When Rob Reiner and Sally Struthers left after season 8, the network did not panic, because Carroll O'Connor was still there. The show simply became Archie Bunker's place, a spin-off that ran 4 more seasons with O'Connor at the center of a fresh ensemble, confirming that he had not so much shared the original show as temporarily housed it. Gene Stapleton departed Archie Bunker's place after season 2, and the show never fully recovered from that loss. Some foundations do not reveal how essential they are until they are gone. Number 4. Ted Danson, Cheers. Cheers premiered on NBC in 1982 and spent 11 seasons proving that a bar in Boston could be the most compelling place on television. The cast was one of the greatest ensembles ever assembled in the history of the medium. Ted Danson as Sam, Shelley Long as Diane, Rhea Perlman, John Ratzenberger, George Wendt, Kelsey Grammer, Woody Harrelson. Just an absolute embarrassment of talent. The kind of lineup that makes you feel guilty for not watching it in real time. And for the first few seasons, that ensemble truly did function as a unit. The writing was sharp enough to give everyone meaningful moments. But look a little more closely and you notice something. Every story, every conflict, every emotional thread ran through Sam Malone. He was the connective tissue of the whole operation. Now, Sam Malone was a genuinely great character, and Ted Danson played him with deceptive skill. The comedy looked effortless. The dramatic moments, when they arrived, were earned through real craft. But there was a particular gravitational pull to Sam that the writers could not seem to resist returning to, week after week. Thomas was a charismatic actor with legitimate screen presence. When Shelley Long left after season 5, and we have covered that story in detail on this channel, the question was whether Cheers could survive the departure of its most dynamic romantic counterpoint. The answer was yes. But the reason it survived is the same reason Long's departure was ultimately inevitable. The show had always been structured around Sam. Diane was his counterpoint, not the other way around. When she left, the writers found a new counterpoint in Kirstie Alley's Rebecca Howe and kept moving. By the finale, when Sam Malone chose the bar over the relationship, over everything, it was the only ending that made any real sense. This had always been his story. Number 3. Henry Winkler, Happy Days. Happy Days debuted on ABC in 1974 as Gary Marshall's warm and affectionate look at life in 1950s Milwaukee. Ron Howard was the star. Richie Cunningham, earnest, good-natured, a little awkward in exactly the right way, was the audience's entry point into the show's world. Every creative decision in that first season pointed in one direction. This was Richie's story. Then Arthur Fonzarelli showed up. Henry Winkler's Fonzie was introduced as a minor supporting character, the neighborhood tough guy with the leather jacket and the motorcycle, living above the Cunningham's garage. He appeared occasionally. He was a texture element, a bit of edge at the margins. Nobody at ABC had any idea what they had. What they had was one of the most dramatic realignments of a show's center of gravity in the 1970s. Audiences responded to Fonzie with a level of enthusiasm that network executives still describe, usually in hushed and slightly odd tones, as generational. Fan mail arrived by the truckload. Merchandise demand exploded. Henry Winkler became one of the biggest stars in America before anyone had time to process what was happening. ABC responded the way networks always respond to that kind of information. They gave Fonzie more screen time, more storylines, and eventually a promotional prominence that made the billing situation clear to everyone. By seasons 3 and 4, the credits, the promotional materials, and the actual episode plots all reflected a simple reality. Happy Days was a Fonzie vehicle. Richie was along for the ride. Ron Howard left by 1980 to pursue his directing career. It turned out to be one of the great pivots in Hollywood history. Don Most and Anson Williams stayed on as Ralph and Potsy, but with steadily diminishing relevance. Henry Winkler, to his credit, has spoken openly about the weight of the Fonzie phenomenon and what it ultimately did to the show's balance. And yes, jumping over that shark in 1977 did not exactly help stabilize things. We all know that one. Number 2. Bill Cosby. The Cosby Show. The Cosby Show premiered on NBC in 1984 and immediately became a cultural institution. At its peak, it was the most watched program in America, the anchor of NBC's legendary Thursday night lineup, and genuinely credited by television historians with reviving the network's sitcom as a format after years of declining ratings across the industry. That is not promotional language. That is the actual historical record, and it was built from the ground up around one man's vision, one man's persona, and one man's complete creative authority. Bill Cosby did not simply star in the show. He developed it, shaped it, and maintained control over its direction throughout its entire run. He had script approval. He had casting input. His sensibility as a comedian permeated every scene, every setup, every punchline. And there are well-documented accounts of Cosby rewriting scenes on set, redirecting storylines mid-production, and operating with a level of authority that showrunners typically do not hand over willingly. I want to be direct here for a moment and acknowledge that the later revelations about Bill Cosby exist as a separate and serious conversation. We are discussing television history, the specific mechanics of creative power on one of the most successful programs ever produced. Both conversations are real. They simply are not the same conversation. What the cast of The Cosby Show experienced was a production that functioned as an extension of one person's creative identity. Felicia Rashad brought genuine warmth and intelligence to Claire Huxtable and received beautiful material in return. The children were wonderful, but the show's DNA was Cosby's in a way that left little room for anything else to grow in its shadow. When the series concluded in 1992, it did not end because the ratings had fallen. It ended because Cosby decided it was time. One person called that. One person had always called everything. That is a remarkable concentration of power for a sitcom about a nice family in Brooklyn. Number 1. Jaleel White, Family Matters. And here we are, number 1. And look, if you have been watching this channel for any amount of time, you probably had this one penciled in before we even got started. Hi, I am Aaron, I am occasionally predictable, and I have fully accepted that about myself. Family Matters debuted on ABC in 1989 as a spin-off of Perfect Strangers, built around Reginald VelJohnson's Carl Winslow and his warm, lovable Chicago family. The premise was right there in the title, a family show. About a family, Carl and Harriet, kids Eddie, Laura, and Judy, neighbor Rachel, her son Richie. Simple, grounded, exactly what it said on the tin. Then a nerdy kid in high-waisted pants showed up in episode 3. Steve Urkel was written as a one-off, a single appearance. The annoying next-door neighbor with the suspenders and the unrequited crush on Laura Winslow. He was supposed to come in, get a few laughs, and disappear forever. And then Jaleel White opened his mouth, said 4 words, and audiences across America absolutely lost their minds. Did I do that? The fan response was immediate, and it was overwhelming. ABC moved fast. Urkel was a series regular by season 2, and from that moment forward, the show's original cast watched their storylines shrink in real time. Judy Winslow was gone after season 4. We have a full video on that if you want the whole story. Rachel faded out. Richie phased away. By the final seasons, the Winslow family was essentially the supporting cast of a science fiction comedy featuring time machines, clones, and a machine that literally transformed Steve Urkel into a smooth alter ego named Stephen Urquell. I want to be clear. This was still supposedly a family sitcom set in Chicago. Reginald VelJohnson has talked about all of this over the years with genuine grace and zero bitterness, which honestly says everything about the man. But the numbers do not lie. A show that launched with his name at the top ended with someone else's face on every lunchbox in America. And here's the part that makes this whole story genuinely remarkable. Jaleel White was 12 years old. He did not have a strategy. He did not have leverage. He just showed up and accidentally rewrote an entire television series around himself before anyone realized it was already too late to stop it. That is number one. And honestly, it was never going to be anything else.